Welcome to the Feeling Loudly podcast, a show about human emotion and the way we navigate this life of trials and triggers and treasures with the help of astrology and tarot. I'm your host, Jana. I'm an astrologer, a tarot reader, and an Akashic Records reader, and I'm here to help you do this messy life with as much grace, ease, and pleasure as possible. Good morning. Welcome to day 20 of 22 Days of Tarot. I am actually recording this in the morning, the day after our Sunday, card 19. I tried recording last night and it just wasn't happening. I recorded a whole little episode, but I was really wiped out and in like a really sad mood, and I couldn't do it. So I decided to tend to my sun, which is a 12th house Taurus sun, and get some rest and some silence after what was a pretty tough day, TBH. It was not what I was, I wasn't expecting anything. I know enough to know that the sun isn't always a perfect sunny day. And often the way that we learn about the sun is in its absence. And not coincidentally, but sort of just beautifully orchestrated by the uni. Yesterday, the actual sun in the sky entered my natal 12th house in the Porphyry house system that I use. And my 12th house is primarily in the sign of Taurus because I'm a late degree Taurus rising, but I do have a solid chunk of Aries that's in there too. And so it didn't clock for me in the morning when I was sitting down with the sun, like, oh, this is actually a big Sunday for you because of the solar ingress. But it sure clocked later when I was like reconnecting and preparing to record this podcast episode and was like, I don't understand what the sun is doing today. And I checked my chart in Time Nomad and was like, yes, that's right. And it was pretty perfect because the sun entering my 12th as a 12th house sun on the day of the sun card really flagged for me the complexity of my relationship with this card and with the sun itself. If you have any 12th house placements, or if you just know enough about astrology, you probably know that the 12th house is a complex place, and it's a place that can be very difficult for the sun to shine. And it does shine when you give it the space to, but it's unorthodox. It's a house that has to do with endings and loss and isolation and transcendence and connection to the unseen and connection to the vastness, the ocean of the universe and the ocean of connection. And it felt really appropriate that my oracle card today was 1. And I just want to read this to you because it feels very 12th house to me. And I think it can kind of do a better job of capturing some of the thoughts that are swimming around my little 12th house Mercury brain too. So this is from the Modern Nirvana Oracle. And it goes, you learn by reading but understand by love. Shams Tabrizi. Ubuntu is a Nguni Bantu term that recognizes the interconnectedness of humanity. I am because we are, or humanity toward others, begs us to remember that the nature of our humanness is inextricably linked. Oftentimes when we search for answers, we forget how much we already know. Simply by looking within, we can be reminded of the interconnectivity that we all have with one another. Once we connect to this consciousness and drop into absolute harmony, the answers will rise. The connection that we have with nature, humanity, and everything within consciousness is one. Remember your power and deep connection to everything and everyone and allow that awareness to shine. And the mantra is, we are one and I am because we are. As I connect with my inner light, I remind others to remember who they are. And so that little mantra at the end is significant for me. The idea of remembering who you are and connecting with your inner light, that's something that's really hard won for a lot of 12th house suns. It can have the effect of sort of dissolving the identity over and over and over and over again to the point that it can be really tough to locate yourself in the midst of the ocean of humanity and of connection. And I adore my 12th house sun and my 12th house Mercury, but I will tell you that it has not been an easy ride to get there. It required pretty constant surrendering through most of my life, a lot of grief, a lot of loss, and just a lot of heartbreak. And it's easy for me to go into a space of being like, woe is me over stuff, even though like I'm very blessed in many ways. And, you know, I have so much to be grateful for. And also sometimes, again, we learn about the sun through its absence. And that has been my experience. Growing up, I didn't really know what it felt like to not live with depression because it was just my reality. And so when I began to feel authentic joy and connection at later parts in life, it was sort of a painful experience. And I think that that is a solar experience too, is like sometimes when you're, you know, I heard someone say recently, like, oh, we had a sunny day, but it kind of hurt because it was a reminder. It was like a punctuation mark in the midst of this like gloomy sea in the Pacific Northwest. And that was a reminder of what they didn't have on an ongoing basis. And that can be tough, right? Because like we're frequently told to just appreciate what we have and to appreciate the sunlight when it comes and just like take the fog and the rain and whatever when it's there too, but to really like relish in those moments of joy. And as a 12th house person, that's a tough one for me because when you live in the darkness in many ways, which I say that like because we literally refer to the 12th house as a house of darkness. When you live in the darkness and then you're given like a ray of light, it can hurt. And I had to kind of wade through this yesterday because I was having a really tough day. It started well, for the most part, but when I tuned into the sun, I couldn't quite locate it and I was having trouble feeling into it. I didn't have much of an emotional reaction to it, which kind of surprised me because this is a card that's often associated with joy and celebration and connection and like victory and like relief and kind of like the sun rising after the moon. And it was so fascinating to me that actually my moon day was so much more sweet. And there's some interesting astrological correlations here. Like I have a Leo moon, and so my moon is ruled by the sun. The sun is the planetary ruler of the sign of Leo. And so my moon is ruled by the sun. And my sun is again in the 12th house. So it's a Taurus 12th house sun that rules my 4th house Leo moon. And both of those are very private houses. And so my luminaries are in these water houses that can be quite like feeling like you're in the womb or you want to be in the womb. Like there's this element to both that can be like, I'm not ready to be outside. I'm not ready to be seen. I'm not ready to be like witnessed in this way because my luminaries shine when they're in these like hidden places. And so like self-revealing has been a struggle for me and something that my Leo moon has really kind of pushed me and pushed me and pushed me to do because, you know, there's another part of me that very authentically needs to self-express and needs to be witnessed. And so that's a little battle that occurs between these parts of me. And I found it really interesting that in connecting to the sun card, I connected to the sort of like that part of my Leo moon. Like I was having a hard day and I was like, I need to post about this. I need to like post sad things. I need to listen to sad music. I need to like, you know, put this out there and have it be witnessed in a way. And then on the other hand, my instinct was to like totally go into hiding and retreat. And I was like, I can't record this episode. I can't be heard right now. This is too raw. This is too heavy. And I had this thought or this complex around not wanting to be seen in like my sadness and my lowness and feeling like just kind of a little puddle. And so there was the sort of like 12th house self-consciousness of that. Like, I don't want to be seen in this state. I want to come to this microphone with a lot of wisdom to share and be put together and feel like I have it going on, which was so interesting because that's not at all how this podcast has been, right? Like I've cried on this podcast. I have, gotten confused and said weird shit and said stuff that was uncomfortable for me. I don't script it. It's all very like fly by the seat of my pants. And yet there was this resistance to coming on here and talking when like I was really in my feelings and when I didn't have a whole lot of sunshine to offer. And that's that Leo part of me that's like, I have to have sunshine to offer or I won't be accepted. I have to like show up in some type of like glowing energy in order to not be rejected or like judged or whatever. And so that dynamic was really at play for me yesterday. And I found myself kind of like people pleasing and wanting to smooth things over where it probably would have been better to just allow the roughness to exist and allow like myself to exist in my roughness. And so like that yearning I found for the sun, to embody the sun, to embody that sunny disposition and to be like, you know, uplifting and cheerful and joyful was really pushing at me as the sun entered my 12th and was like, no, you're here to experience the grief. You're here to experience the complexity of this dark house that you know so, so well because you live there. So now come back home. Come back home to these parts of yourself that you often like shove into the closet and conceal and hide away. Because it feels like, you know, it's not safe to be there all the time, or at least it's not safe to be seen being there. And so a lot of like, yeah, just a lot of inner stuff going on for me. And my experience was so different than what you might expect from someone who is having the sun day. It was not a cheerful day for me. It was not a happy day for me. I, in fact, was like really grieving. And I got really swept up, like obsessing and feeling like really out to sea and kind of like self-sacrificial and like martyry, which can be very, you know, my Pisces Venus rules my 12th house placements. And so my 12th house sun and Mercury are ruled by my Pisces Venus. And so there is this real tendency that I have to like to self-sacrifice in a way that's not healthy or safe, and to kind of like rip my heart out of my chest and be like, here you go. And I was doing that, and I was feeling hurt, and I was feeling rejected, and I was feeling really raw and angry. And it almost felt like coming off of yesterday's episode with the moon, where I was going on and on about like how I've come so far in honoring my emotions. And it almost felt like they were like, all right, show us how far you've come and do it, because this is a day to feel now. And so, you know, I tried, and I'm still trying today. I had a good cry this morning at my altar, and had a good cry last night, and we'll probably continue to have some good cries throughout this weekend, especially as we're closing down this challenge. And I'm even, you know, feeling a lot of grief, kind of premature grief coming up over ending this journey, which is part of the process, right? Like it's just part of the process. And goodbyes are hard. And I think that like sometimes the solar experience or the sun experience can be a goodbye. It can be a release. It can be sending someone off with love and sending goodwill to someone, and really from the bottom of your heart, like wishing for joy and wishing for a happy outcome, whatever that looks like, or at least like a peaceful outcome, and then releasing it. And so I didn't, I guess, ever associate this card with surrender, but in many ways it is. Like we surrender to the fact that the sun sets every single day, and in itself that's a goodbye. The sun rises the next morning, and that's another hello. And so there's a consistency in that, and like a confidence that we can have in that process that then might help us also understand the ways that life goes up and down, and the ways that there is a sort of certainty to greetings and goodbyes, and to beginnings and endings, and we witness it every single day in the sky. And that can be comforting in a way. It can be really comforting to recognize that like this too shall pass, and that we won't feel this way forever. that's something that can be tough for me to remember when I'm really like in an emotion. Like, I won't feel this way forever. And even though I'm going through it and I'm feeling it right now and it's really heavy and it's really hard, it's not going to feel that way forever. And so, like, as someone who has experienced heartbreaks that lasted over a decade, and I mean that, it's complicated for me sometimes because I can also be like, but it's going to last a really long time, or like this pain is going to last a really long time, this grief is going to keep on grieving. And sometimes it does, right? Like, there are some things that do take a really long time for us to move beyond, and we sort of just learn to live with it, much like we learn to live with our chironic wounds in our charts. There's some things that just keep on aching, and that doesn't have to be the experience all the time. You know, we can also give ourselves space to experience joy even in unexpected moments, and to not cling so tightly to our grief that it prohibits us from experiencing the rest of life and the rest of our emotional spectrum too. And so that's something I'm working on. It's something that can be hard for me because I really go in, like when I'm grieving and when I'm in pain, I like really tend to go into the feeling. And that can be really supportive and can really help me like transmute and like move through it instead of avoiding it. But yesterday, what I did was instead I sort of like dissociated into my phone and into the tarot and trying to like find answers, obsessively pulling cards, and just really not feeling well. Like, I didn't feel good. And it brought up some of my like compulsive behaviors that I've talked about on the podcast. And so I had to breathe that out. I had to put myself to bed. I had to say, like, you're not going to record this tonight. You need to sleep. And so I do look forward to more rest throughout this 12th house season. And I just want people out there to know that, like, if you also struggle with like the sunny archetypes, and if the sun isn't a perfectly joyful card for you, you're okay. That's okay. Our prompt yesterday was, what road are you on? And I saw myself on this like back road, like in like a tractor. Like, I was like out there on like a bumpy dirt road on a tractor, and it was really interesting. I've never ridden a tractor before. But then I heard like in the backwoods, and when I looked at the card, it's this really beautiful image of a sun that's rising over a rocky horizon with like mist and clouds, and there are concentric circles around the sun and then butterflies on the outer circle. And it's a card of community to me. And I felt that, like, your community is here for you. Your community can help you buoy your sun. Like, don't turn away from friendship, especially in dark times. The sort of support that you receive when you're struggling can be the thing that offers that sunny balm that ends up causing you to like bear witness to all the beauty and joy in your life. And so often that is kind of a beautiful byproduct of pain, is that we get to see how much people love us. We get to see how much people want to be there for us and want to love on us and support us. And it's something that I was like turning away from. Like, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not going to share this. I'm just going to be like in it by myself and like do that whole thing. And so seeing this again today, I'm like, no, like I need to like connect with my people, and I need to like share and receive that kind of love and support. So I hope you do too if you're having a hard time out there. Our song of the day today. Oh, our exercise was looking at a photo of the sun, and on the NASA website, and the one that I picked was gorgeous, and I will include it in the Instagram post for this podcast episode. My instinct was like, how could you not believe in magic looking at this photo? Like, how could you look at this image of the sun and not trust that the universe is a brilliant, wild, and magical place that is full of spirits and full of both seen and unseen energies that are here to buoy us. My song was Sweet Holy Honey by Sango and Xavier Omar, and I really love this song. It's about, I hadn't properly read the lyrics before, but it's about like a relationship. It says, trying to do it the right way. I waited for you. I asked you a question of which we were destined with your reply. It's been hard. Have you ever seen yourself in a mirror? I've been holding back. I've been wanting that sweet, holy honey. It's dripping from your lips, every little kiss, sweet, holy honey. So a lot of yearning in the song. And then it just goes over and over again. I've been thinking about you night and day. I've been thinking about you night and day. And then it says, trying to do it the right way. That's how you know I love you. The way you wear that gown is a countdown. And then it kind of just like repeats some of the same lyrics and then ends on, I respect who you are, and out of respect to our God, you and I have been pushing aside all these deep desires. And interestingly, I got like a poem, a bibliomancy poem that was about like sinning versus living yesterday from my collection of E. Cummings unpublished poetry. And it felt similarly like this pushing aside of desires, this like needing to kind of align with what feels like the right action as opposed to like the desired action. And rereading this song, I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. And this idea of like sweet, holy honey, like we can get that from a lover. We can, get that like that delectable, like delicious connection. And we can also get that from spirit. I say with a laugh and a sneer at myself for even fucking suggesting that. It's not the same. Look, I'm a fucking Taurus. I appreciate sensuality. And it's also like a 12th house Taurus sun. Like I'm very nourished by my connection with spirit. And I can't sleep with my spirits. I could if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I have, but it's a different experience. But there is this sort of like, I just feel someone out there like, what the fuck is she talking about? But this like, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to chew on here. And maybe this song will hold meaning to someone out there, but there's this like obsessive quality and this desiring quality that is very present in the song. And I'll have to go watch the music video to see what's up with it. And so that's like, I don't know. My sun in my natal chart activates my whole fixed cross, it's directly opposite Pluto. So there we go. And Mercury's directly opposite Pluto, or almost within like 2 degrees. And then my sun is like 5 degrees orbed opposite Pluto and Black Moon Lilith. And so there is this like natural obsessive energy that I embody as a person. And that's something that's hard for me to deal with. It's something that came up yesterday. And, I think like the fact that I woke up this morning and I wasn't feeling that way is a testament to the sun. Like the sun set and then gave me the space to like explore the ethers of my brain that can be difficult. And the absence of the sun made space for that exploration. And then in the sun's rise this morning, I felt very freed from that. And I felt like, I can exhale, like it's a new day. It's a new day. And that brings with it a new energy. Even if some of our problems still exist, it's not the same. It's a different flavor. Okay, I'm going to end there. I need to scurry off to my day. Thank you for listening. And I will be back with another podcast probably tonight. Bye.